Okay, so I just got done reading A Court of Thrones and Roses by Sarah J. Moss. Whew. Farah takes care of her family, her sisters and her father. She's the one that goes out into the forest to hunt, to kill, to bring food home on the table, to sell the furs so the family can have money. She's the one that's taking care of everything. One day she's out in the forest, she has her eye on a deer that she's gonna kill to take home for dinner. But as she's about to draw her arrow, she sees that there's a wolf not too far away looking at the same deer. So she's thinking to herself, like, wow, like, should I just let him have it and find something else? Because, she doesn't want any issues with the wolf. But then she's looking at the wolf and she's thinking to herself, like, wow, that's the biggest wolf I've ever seen in my life. And she's also thinking that this wolf may be a fairy because in the book, they have fairies that were very vicious, like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Like the fairies were at war with the humans, and like the fairies were just very, very vicious. But there's some kind of treaty where the fairies can't come near the humans. So she's thinking to herself, if this fairy is this close to our town, that can be good. So if it is a fairy and I take a shot, it's a win-win. I get to kill it and protect my town, and I can bring it home and sell the fur. So she decides to go for it. But if it's a fairy, you can't just kill it with the arrow. You need to use something with the ash wood. So she has an arrow with ash wood. And she always has it on her. So she pulls it out. She shoots the wolf in the side. And she grabs another arrow and she shoots it right through the eye. And then the wolf just falls dead. And she walks up to the deer and the wolf and she's looking at them both. And she's like, I can't carry both of them. So she carries the deer, but then she takes the fur off of the wolf. So she takes the deer home so the family can have some food, make jerky and whatnot. And then she takes the fur, she takes it into town to sell so the family can have money. Shortly after, she's at home with the family and they're just talking. And all of a sudden the door bursts open. There's a really, really loud voice. There's a creature with fur and horns, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, "Who killed my friend?" At this point, Farah knows that she killed a fairy. The family's terrified. But Farah, she's standing her ground. She even grabs a knife and she tries to attack this creature, but it just brushes her off like it's nothing. And as they're talking, Farah, she owns up to what she did. She steps forward. She's like, "Yes, it was me that did it." And he looks at her. He's like, you scrawny human. You're the one that killed my friend." And she's like, "Yes, it was me." He's like, "How did you do it?" She's like, "I shot him with my bow and arrow, made of ashwood." So he looks at her, and then he's like, "I can either kill you now, or I can take you as a slave." So she decides to go with this fairy and become a slave. She says her goodbyes to her family and everything. They're all crying. They're upset. They don't want her to go. But the fairy's like, "Hey, a life for a life." So the fairy leaves with Farah. And as they're walking, like she's like bound to the horse. She can't move. Some kind of magic. And she's asking all these questions. And the he's clearly getting annoyed. So he like puts a towel in her nose and then she just passes out. And she's passed out for like 2 days. And they finally get to some land that's far, far away from her town. As they walk in, like, it's a palace. This thing is huge, but this place also seems very abandoned. So as they get there, she can kind of move a little bit, so like the magic isn't holding her down anymore. So as she's here, she's very skeptical, and she's seeing these other fairies, and she doesn't trust them. She doesn't feel comfortable. She doesn't feel safe. But she's our captive now. So as time goes on, she starts to open up and loosen up a little bit, and she starts to trust the fairies a little bit. But they give her rules, and she doesn't listen. She just wants to do her own thing. So one day she's out and about. She didn't listen, and she gets caught with these other creatures, and now she's running for her life. but I'm not telling you anymore. You gotta check it out. But this book was amazing. If you're looking for something that's gonna give you like a nice little escape, this is definitely the book. Like the author did a good job with both the plot and the detail were amazing. As I was reading it, I just had vivid thoughts in my mind the whole time. Like this was a good read. I highly recommend this book. I give it 5 out of 5 stars.